is Candace Cordelia coming to you from In the Zone with another wonderful interview in store. I am sitting here with Kate Scott, but of course we are doing this via Zoom, so I'm not actually sitting with her in person. But Kate Scott is a sports broadcaster. She is a woman of many, many amazing firsts. She's also the morning roast host on 95.7. She's a play-by-play announcer. We're going to talk all about her accomplishments as a woman in sports broadcasting. And I am so excited to sit here with you, Kate. This is a pleasure and an honor to meet you.
Well, the pleasure's all mine. I'm excited to get into this. Thanks for having me today, Candace.
Absolutely. So my first question for you is, it's a basic one. I would love to know about your childhood. You know, growing up as a child, were you really into sports, and did you think that you would be a sports broadcaster growing up as a young girl?
Well, I was really into sports, but I had no idea that what I'm doing now was even a remote possibility for me because I'm a little bit older than you, Candace. I'm 37. And when I was a young girl growing up, watching every single sport there was to watch, there was very few women at any level of sports broadcasting. And there was Leslie Visser and Andrea Kramer and Bonnie Bernstein and a couple of other women doing sideline. There was Robin Roberts and Linda Cohn anchoring Sports Center, and Hannah Storm and Susie Kohlberg came in at the tail end of that. But there was very few women in sports. So even as a young girl growing up, watching every sport, and my parents loved to tell the story of me when I was a little kid and could get my own bowl of cereal on the weekends and go out so that mom and dad could sleep in a few minutes longer than they might otherwise. They would come out, and as opposed to finding me watching Saturday morning cartoons, I was always locked in the Sports Center, just watching the 30-minute reruns that used to air back to back to back in the mornings when I was growing up. So, but I didn't put two and two together because everybody I was watching for the most part was a man. I never thought that that was something I could do. I just thought I love this, and I played every sport too. I played 4 varsity sports all 4 years at high school. Wrecked my knee my junior year of high school, so my plans of going to college and being a soccer superstar didn't come to pass. But it turned out to all these years later be a blessing in disguise, because then I got right into sports journalism my freshman year at Cal, thanks to a high school advisor who smacked me in the head and said, Kate, you need to be a sports broadcaster. Because again, I didn't think that was even a possibility for me because there were so few women. So if it hadn't been for that advisor telling me this is what I should do, I don't know if I'd be here chatting with you today, Candace.
So I would love to know what your path was like, learning the ins and outs of sports journalism, broadcasting, and transposing that into the career that you have today.
Yeah, well, there really wasn't a sports broadcasting program. Cal didn't even have, Cal has Cal Sports now, which it was a television station that didn't even exist when I was there back in the early 00s. And a lot of the teaching was just theory based. So it's, this is mass media. This is what print journalism is like. This is television. This is radio. So we would study it in that way, and how things differed depending on what country you were reporting in. But I'm so grateful and thankful that somebody again told me my freshman year at Cal, hey, if you actually want to get into this, all this theory-based stuff is great, but you need to go intern for television stations and radio stations, and you need to really get into the weeds and find out what this is like. So starting the summer between my freshman and sophomore year, I did my first television internship at the ABC television affiliate down in Fresno in the Central Valley in California, where I grew up. And I was out there, I started at the assignment desk because, again, super small ABC station. So I just got to go out with reporters who were finding a cat in a well and pulling it out and going to the courthouse. And I was just getting to experience just local news in general. And then the following summer, I came back and really honed in on sports and got to sit with the sports anchor and go out with the sports reporter and learn what that was all about. So it was kind of a combination of learning. And while that was going on with the internships and the theory learning at Cal, I was lucky enough to work my way into my first on-air opportunity with the Cal Highlight Show. I was just a stupid kid who saw a dude with a camera at every Cal sporting event. And I was like, feel like I should talk to him. He's at the basketball games and the football games. So literally after a game, tapped him on the shoulder and said, "Hey, what are you filming for?" Because it was different than all the big cameras that the news stations had. And this was before everybody had a camera. And he said, "Oh, I produce the Cal Highlight Show that airs every week on Fox Sports Bay Area." And I said, "Do you need an intern?" And he said, "Well, we're pretty low budget. We don't need an intern, but I could use a student host for this segment idea I've had." Crazy things happened. That was my sophomore year at Cal, and I got to learn TV production through that side of things. So yeah, just it was a combination of things, Candace. And then since then, the guy's name at Cal was Paul Aldridge, and he and I have stayed connected, and he has been a big part in the steps I've taken in my career and where I am today.
I love that. And I have to co-sign on your ABC shout out because I have a past background with ABC Radio in New York City. So I heard ABC and I was like, yes, yes.
Love that. Yep.
I love that kinship. So let's fast forward to your many accomplishments. I mean, first woman to call an NFL game on the radio, first woman to call football for the Pac-12 Networks, first play-by-play announcer for the first all-female NHL broadcast in the United States. I'm sure there are little girls and young women that out here today trying to do exactly what you've done, and you continue to smash everything that you set your mind to. So what drives you? What gives you that ambition to do what you do?
Because I'm stupid, Candace. That's what like, seriously, why did I say yes to all these things? No, I'm kidding. But thank you for what you said about some of the things I've done. And I think it is a combination of things. You mentioned the little girls, and that is something that matters so much to me. The little girls and also all the women who have come before me, who have really been the trailblazers, the women who I mentioned earlier, the Andrea Kramers and the Leslie Vissers and the Linda Cohns and the Bonnie Bernsteins and stuff, because I wouldn't have gotten the opportunity to do any of those firsts that you mentioned if they hadn't put up with the really hard stuff, with all the people kicking them out of locker rooms and saying you don't belong and sending them horrific mail when people actually used to send letters back in the day. So I do it for them because I am so grateful for them creating this space for me to be being paid to do what I do now that didn't exist, as we were talking about when I was a little girl, 30 years ago and not that long ago. And then I do it for the little girls who were like me, who love watching sports, who are playing every sport, who at recess, it's them and all the boys out there, on the blacktop, or who love sports and, aren't sure they're going to play it at the highest levels, but want to be involved. And hopefully they'll see some of the things I did and say, wow, I didn't know that was an actual possibility for me. I want to go to school and learn how to do that. So those are the two big groups I do it for, but I also do it for the young boys and the guys who don't think that women belong, and for young boys to grow up knowing that women can do this too. Those have been some of my favorite responses when I called the 49ers games back in 2016. One of my favorite tweets was, "Man, I thought you were going to suck and you didn't. And I kind of liked listening to you. So good work." And that was great honesty. And I appreciated the fact that for whatever reason, that guy didn't think I was going to do a great job, but he ended up sticking with it and might have changed at least one mind that day. And then the little boys, that was one of the coolest things about the NHL game that I got to do back in March, was because I got to call it with two Olympic gold medalists who, when it comes to hockey, like they've already been calling NHL hockey, AJ Malesko and Kendall Coyne Schofield, and seeing the little boys get excited to take pictures with them and get their autographs, to have that respect for female athletes at a young age, right? That's going to make such a difference as they interact with their sisters and who they're dating, and if they have daughters in the future. So there's a lot that goes into it, and all of it has, I think, worked out for me, because the only reason I have done it, all the things I talked about were the effects I hope to have and the impact I hope to have. But I just love a challenge. So always looking for that next thing, how I can challenge myself to get better and improve. So it's never been about doing something because it's the first. Oh, that's exciting. No, actually, it's terrifying. And it's been a ton of pressure that for the most part I put on myself, but I haven't wanted to let our gender down. But I'm just always looking for ways to get better. I'm never satisfied with where I'm at. So it has just been the next step in my journey. And I'm so fortunate that the decision makers have said, well, we've never done this before, but I think she might be the right person for it, and have taken that risk on me, because we wouldn't be having this conversation if they hadn't done that.
Yeah. And speaking of challenges, I understand that two things on your bucket list, and correct me if I'm wrong, you have dreams to broadcast for the Olympics and the World Cup.
Yep.
So,
Yep.
how close are you to realizing those dreams? Is this something that we can see for the next
So
Olympics?
can we get the executives for NBC and Fox on the phone right now? Hello, calling Stamford, Connecticut. No, great question. But I think that they, because of all the hard work I've put in over the past decade, I think that hopefully in the next decade, between 2020 and 2030, I will get the opportunity to do that. And to be perfectly honest, that was one of the reasons that I wanted to get connected with NBC all those years ago. It's one of the things I try to tell kids like yourself, even though I know you're not that much younger than me. I call you a kid in the industry. Try to have the long view as much as you can, right? You got to have the short view. How am I going to pay my bills this month? I totally get that. I still go through that. But also, what do I want to do? And the long run and the long view will change. So change with that. But from a young age, that was one of the things I loved watching the most, the Olympics. And I know that it's lost a little cachet over the years, but it hasn't for me. So I knew I always wanted to call the Olympics when I started calling sports, and I knew that NBC has the Olympics contract, right? So I made it a point to try to get in and reach out to them. All those years ago, I've called women's basketball for them, which led to the NHL opportunity that I never saw happening. But yeah, that was part of the long view for me. They asked me if I wanted to fly across the country in January and call a game in 18-degree weather in Massachusetts, and I was like, "Yeah, sign me up, let's do it," because I knew that if I did a good enough job, I would impress them and hopefully get an opportunity. So I don't know if it's going to be in the next year or two, but I am in the conversation when it comes to their Olympic broadcasters. So that's great. And then when it comes to the World Cup, great question. I have friends at all the networks now because I've been in this long enough. I know the folks, Fox has it right now. I have friends there. I know ESPN has had it in the past, and I'm sure that NBC with their Premier League coverage may be interested in getting into that in the future as well. But don't know for sure there. So I'm just gonna, as I've done with everything else, keep my nose to the grind, keep calling as many soccer games as I can, keep getting as many reps as I can, stay connected with MLS. I was earthquake sideline reporter for a number of years here in the Bay Area. And just, it's all about, again, putting yourself in the right position so that when the opportunity arises, you are prepared and ready to say yes and then dive into the opportunity.
I love that you mentioned preparation and looking at the long view because 2020, I mean,
Oof.
what a
Is it
year
over yet?
of
Is it over yet, Candace? Are we
almost,
still in March? It all blends together at this point, right?
almost, we're almost at the finish line. And it's very intriguing that you mentioned those things because for everyone around the world, everyone has been dealt with something that they didn't expect. And it's
Yeah.
affected everyone in so many different ways. And for someone like you working in this tenuous industry to begin with, but how have you been able to bounce back in a sense and do what you're still doing with
Yeah.
just everything happening this year? And
I've been incredibly fortunate. You mentioned that I'm now back working in sports radio, which was actually uh, how I got my start in the sports side of the industry. And it's something I tell kids all the time when you're starting out. I know that we often come into this, I want to do features. I want to be a play-by-play announcer. I want to be a sideline reporter. Try to think bigger than that. Have the long view. None of us saw a global pandemic happening. But thanks to the fact that I have created and curated so many relationships in so many different parts of our industry, be it radio or podcasting or TV or play by play. So many of my friends are out of work right now, and I feel awful for them because they don't have the same, I don't know, expansive base of knowledge, I guess, when it comes to our industry that I was lucky enough to get early in my career. So, a lot of folks are just waiting for games to come back because all they do is call games, or they're waiting for studio shows to come back because all they do is anchor. So I am incredibly fortunate that I had done radio for a long time. This opportunity arose because, you know, it, I'm mourning the loss of play-by-play. I love play-by-play. As you mentioned, like I was kind of the biggest moment in my play-by-play career so far happened in March. Got to call an NHL game for NBC, and then the world shut down. So I am definitely mourning the loss of that because I love that, and I can't wait to get back to calling games. But I don't know when it's going to happen. So I am grateful every day that this radio opportunity came up, and that I was able to so seamlessly transition to that, because I know so many friends who are hurting right now and who've had to move back in with their parents because they're not making any money and they don't know when that next job is going to come, because we don't know when certain sports, maybe the sport they cover, is coming back. So yeah, that's the big learning thing for me, just kind of reinforcing something I knew before. Somebody told me really early in my career, make yourself hard to fire, Kate. If they lined everybody up, why are they keeping you? So I try to tell young kids that all the time. Get as many skills as you can, even if you know you want to do one thing in particular. The more you know, the more jobs you can do, just in case of emergency. Probably the longer, more successful career you may have.
And thank you for sharing that, because it's tough, and there are a lot of kids out here still, they're
Oh,
trying their best and doing
I
the
know. And keep going. That's the thing I want to say too. I know that this feels like the end of the world, because some days it does feel like the end of the world. And I'll be honest, I still have those tough days. Some days I'm had a great morning show and ready for the rest of the day and I'm feeling super hopeful. And then other days I'm like, are sports ever going to come back like we know it? Am I ever going to call another soccer game?
How did you get into play by play, and did that intimidate you at all? Did you feel at any point, there's no way I can do this, and I don't know if this is right for me?
I still feel that way, Candace, depending on the game I'm calling. I mean, before the NHL game, I definitely had those doubts, like, why am I doing this? I'm not ready for this. They should have asked somebody else to do this. But yeah, I think I talked to I don't know if this is a gender thing, so I don't want to put it on the gender, but I talked to a lot of women specifically who, we call it imposter syndrome, right? In every industry, who are in design and lawyers and educators. But it's, yeah, somebody else should be doing this. I don't know if I deserve that. So that's I think a confidence thing that I struggle with, and I know a lot of other friends do as well. But getting back to, I mentioned him earlier, Paul Aldrich, the guy who had the camera at Cal. He was the first one after I graduated and I was doing radio. He had a high school football package here in the Bay Area. And again, he was the first risk taker who called me up and was like, hey, Kate, what are you doing a couple months from now? I got this high school football package. I know you've never done it before, but I think you know everything about sports. Like, football, just like all the guys who I hire who've never done play-by-play before either. Do you want to give it a shot? And I was like, Paul, you're freaking crazy, dude. No, why would I want to do play-by-play? Because never seen any women do it. Beth Mowens, Pam Ward were just getting their first reps with ESPN. And thanks to him, he was like, no, nobody's going to be watching these games. Like, they're live to tape. If you make a huge mistake, we can edit it out. Like, just try it. So if it wasn't for him pushing me all those years ago and giving me that opportunity to see if I even liked it, I wouldn't be here. And then once I did it, it was like, okay, like, this is play-by-play as close as you can get to the rush that I got when I played sports back in those high school days, because it's all live. There's no teleprompters. You can prep as much as you want, but like, the star quarterback could get injured on the first series, and then all of a sudden that's when all your prep and you're thinking on your feet, and there's that anxiety and that nervousness and the pressure that I remember feeling in a different way, but similar to playing sports. And again, you get to travel to the games. I'm interacting with the student athletes and the coaches. So once I saw that, I was like, oh yeah, this is what I want to do. I don't want to be in a studio. I learned how to do that because, again, I wanted to be hard to fire. And I learned how to be a sideline reporter because that helps my play-by-play work too, knowing the best ways to interact and make it super easy so that we can all succeed. But man, it is so fun calling a game and potentially maybe getting to be the voice of a big moment for a certain player or a team. So yeah, it's been awesome. I'm really glad I got over that fear. And I hope, maybe not you, Candace, but anybody else watching this who's like, oh, I don't know, play-by-play. That fear is normal. I totally understand it. I went through it for a couple of years when I was starting out. And still, as I mentioned, depending on the enormity of the game I'm calling these days, still sometimes deal with that doubt. But you can do it. It's so fun. It's just like any other skill. You learn how to do it. And once you get comfortable, it's so much fun.
The morning roast. Let's talk about that because
Okay.
congratulations for this amazing opportunity. It seems as though you've only been doing it for a few months. Correct me if I'm wrong,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
how has that been going for you?
Oh, Candace, it depends on the day. When you're launching a new show in the middle of a pandemic, trying to create chemistry over Zoom with guys who I knew my co-host a little bit beforehand, but not well. So it's hard to give someone a really hard time over Zoom when you're not sure of what you're going to say is if you're going to piss them off. But it's actually been really, really fun, and I'm excited about the future once this does end and we're able to get back in studio together. So there's not that delay between us laughing at each other or delays when we're having somebody on as an interview guest. Because I was doing radio when I got hired at the Pac-12 Network and did both of them for about a year and a half, but it was waking up at 4:30 to go do morning radio and then trying to nap and call games at night. It got to the point where I felt like I was only able to give really 50% to each. And I knew that if I wanted to get my play-by-play to where it is now, I had to go 100% into that. So I had to step away from radio. And that was really hard because I loved it so much. There's just an intimacy to radio because you're taking calls and you're responding to text. You're really having a conversation with people that you don't have in television. We're really talking at people when we're on TV. So I always told myself, if I ever get my play-by-play to a point where I'm just as confident as I was in my radio when I left radio, like really feeling like I understood it and was good and confident in the skills that I had, I would love to get an opportunity to go back to radio. So the fact, again, that this happened right now when play-by-play is pretty much shelved for me at the moment, that all of a sudden a radio opportunity would pop up. Like, I'm so grateful every day, and I love the guys who I'm doing it with. And it is tough. That's what I tell our listeners every Friday. I'm like, we had some tough segments this week. Oh, I'm not gonna lie, that could have been better, but appreciate everybody being with us. And we look forward to talking to you again on Monday because there's so few women who get an opportunity to do sports radio. That and play-by-play are really the final frontiers when it comes to acceptance for women in sports broadcasting. And to get to be a host of a drive time show in a major market in the US, it means a lot that they were willing to take a chance on me, that Matt Nahigian and Danny Fry were willing to say, hey, we heard you on that other station. We'd love for you to come be a host on our station. So early days with us on the morning roast, but if anybody wants to listen, radio.com or the free radio.com app, and we're on 6 to 10 a.m. West Coast time. But you can fast forward and rewind on the radio.com app. It's pretty cool. So yeah, it's been a lot of fun getting back into that thing that I always wanted to, and check back in like about a year, Candace. I think we'll really have found our footing then. We'll be rolling. The Warriors will be back. We'll be really crushing it by then. But right now we're just having fun figuring things out.
And that's all it's about. It's about having fun. If you didn't have fun doing it, then, it's like, why bother? Why bother doing it, right? So, very last question for you. And of course, we talked about this year. What's up with 2021 for you?
I wish I had something for you, but I think because of what you just mentioned, Candace, with so much up in the air, we just don't know. I do know that I'm going to be doing sports radio here in the Bay Area on 95.7 Monday through Friday from 6 to 10. So that is so wonderful. I'm so grateful. I can't say that enough to have that stability right now in a world that it feels like everything has gone mad. To have that financial and career stability is incredible. So I know that's going to be going on. We'll see what the Olympics ? Is Tokyo 2021 really going to happen, or is it going to be 2022? So that could be a potential. I know that college sports are slowly but surely coming back. So hopefully once those start to come back on a consistent basis, I'm guessing probably fall of 2021. Hopefully get back into those as well. But yeah, good question, Candace. If you're an oracle, you can kind of read the tea leaves and tell me, feel free to drop me an email, girl, or a tweet. I would love to know.
Absolutely.
I barely know what's happening the next day right now. So I'm just stay healthy, keep all my friends and family healthy, and you too, all of you who are watching, stay healthy, mask up, and we'll see each other in 2021.
Absolutely. Well, you know what, Kate, it's been really motivational speaking with you. Mm-hmm. I am inspired. I really have no doubts that anyone watching this will be inspired as well. please drop all of your social media. I usually end my interviews with this so that folks can look you up. They can find out what you're up to. They can listen to your shows, add you on Twitter, Instagram, all of that good
Okay.
stuff. Yeah.
On the gram, well, I try to make it super easy. So I'm on Twitter and on Instagram at Kate, the letter T, and then Scott, because some chick took Kate Scott before I could get onto the social medias back in the day. And it's some like account that nobody uses, but you go with your brand and you stick with it. So Kate T Scott on Twitter and Instagram. Those are the two I use more than anything. I'm not cool enough to be on the Snap or the TikTok, but maybe one day, Candace, you young kids can teach me. But this was such a pleasure. Thanks so much for
You're
having me on
welcome.
and for doing such great research, girl. Great
Oh,
questions.
thank you. I come prepared. I don't play around.
No, you did not.
This is what I do. So thank you so much, Kate. Thank you everyone for watching. As always, tune into In the Zone for wonderful interviews such as this and much more. And we will see you next time. Take care.